So when we talk about model context protocol on the shop floor, make the operator's job easier. What is AI? It's just mimicking human intelligence. And remember, it is not about replacing people with AI. It's about using AI to make people better. These are fundamental, foundational concepts. How's everybody doing? Long 2 days. I assure you this will not be a boring presentation. Who here has heard me speak before? Raise your hand. All right, good. So for those of you who have not heard me speak before, a couple of warnings. I grew up in upstate New York. I am a God-fearing Christian, but I am not good with the language. So I will drop F-bombs. It's going to happen automatically. I don't think about it. I'm 51 years old. I spent a lot of time trying to beat it out of me. So did my father. It didn't take. So forgive me for the language. It's just automatic. Number two, I like to wing things. So if you have a question at any given time, just ask the question. I'd rather go where the audience wants to go. I'm pretty good at thinking on my feet, so I can answer questions on the fly. I am going to talk about model context protocol today, and I'm going to talk about how it's going to be used on the plant floor. But I want to start with, who here can tell me succinctly what model context protocol is? Can you succinctly tell me what model context protocol is? Succinctly. So succinct means in a way that a third grader understands. No, right? Okay. So does everybody know what MCP is? Does anyone not know what MCP is? Raise your hand if you don't. You don't know? Okay, great. You're going to learn what MCP is today. Who here knows what digital transformation is? Natan says that it's dead, or RIP. Rest in peace. Do I have to? Oh, that's not going to be cool if I got to do that every time. Let's not extend. Let's mirror. There we go. Yes, digital transformation in its Industry 4 form is dead. I mean, it's not dead, but if you're just now digitally transforming, you're in an M&A mindset. You're going to be sold to somebody. You're not going to make it. So we've been preaching this for 10 years. It's too late for you. If you haven't started with Connect, Collect, Store, then it's too late. So if you work for a company that hasn't started with Connect, Collect, Store, it is too late. Look for a different company to go work for. Okay, that's not my opinion. It's empirical math. It's basic mathematics. Those companies are dead. So they are in the process of being acquired. Okay, so Natan is correct. It is now continuous transformation. Okay, and I'm going to demonstrate that here in a second. But everybody knows what digital transformation is, right? Everyone knows what the industrial Internet of Things is, right? Everyone knows what Industry 4 is. Okay, does everybody know what Industry 5 is? Or the fifth industrial revolution, which we are in right now. Most people just don't know it yet. Does anybody tell me what it is? Actually, tell me what Industry 4 is. Yeah, it's the automation of business decisions through data. And the third industrial revolution was the automation of business processes through controllers, the PLC. 1969, Industry 3, 1998, TCP/IP. You take the data that was generated from the PLCs, you combine that with IT data, and now you can automate business decisions. That's what Industry 4 is. That's why Tesla is Tesla, and that's why Amazon is Amazon, right? And if you've heard me speak before, I'll always ask the question, why is Tesla awesome? And here in Boston, in the Northeast, I generally get 20 people who tell me that Elon Musk sucks and Tesla sucks. But in Texas, nobody raises their hand and says Tesla is not awesome, and everybody loves Elon. But does anybody here disagree that Tesla is awesome? Like, everybody agrees Tesla is awesome, right? Okay. Can anyone articulate why Tesla is awesome? Speed. Okay. Speed's a good one. Short time to value is what I like to say. What? Say it again. Right. So the reason Tesla is awesome, at the end of the day, I like to say this all the time. How many in here are engineers? Okay, so a half. How many are executives? Couple. Business development. Okay, what are the rest of you? IT. Okay, well I would throw you in the engineer class. Okay. I like to say that we need to focus on the problem, and one of the things that I'm gonna encourage you, and we're talking about MCP for the shop floor. If you go out and if you walk around in the exhibits out there, there's something really unique about the exhibits that we have at this show that we don't see at most shows. And that is two things. Number one, every exhibit out there is basically more than one vendor working together, okay, which is pretty rare, okay? But number two, all of the exhibits out there are demonstrating the high end of the art of the possible. Like most manufacturers are not ready to go do the stuff that's in those booths out there, okay? There are some, but most aren't. You know, if you look at, is it Cognite or, right, is Cognite and Tulip, they did a amazing integration using agent to agent between a Tulip operating panel looking for an anomaly in a bioreactor and then triggering an automation that then hit an endpoint at Cognite's backend, then searched all the batch records over 10 years and had two agents talking to each other over agent to agent protocol to diagnose what the problem is and come up with a list of possible mitigation strategies for the operator, and it did it all in 60 seconds. Okay? Not ready for that. I know they're not ready because I consult for they're definitely not ready for that. Eli Lilly is not ready for that. Is ready for that. Stada in the European Union is ready for that. Moderna is not ready for it. The vast majority of life sciences are not ready for what they presented out there. But the life sciences organization who jumps on that technology now, they become Tesla. Tesla is awesome because they're not a car company. Tesla is awesome because they're a data company. And I've said this a million times. I had a conversation with Canary, you know, Canary historian. So at ICC a couple of weeks ago, vendors, in this stage of my career, and I'll talk about like where I come from. At this stage of my career, the people who call me the most are vendors or the OEMs. And it's mostly go-to-market stuff. Like, what are we doing wrong? Is this technology awesome? Is there a market for it? And a lot of what I talk to vendors about is their history. I was having this conversation with Canary Labs, and Canary Labs makes a world-class historian. It's still the best historian you can buy. Yeah, there's no better historian. Their compression technology, the way that they store time series data in flat files on the disk, and the way they access that, similar to ODBC, is world-class, and it's been world-class for 30 years, and no one's figured out how to be better. QuestDB just now coming along is the first technology that can even remotely touch their performance. And some of you will say OSI Pi, and I'm gonna go, then clearly you've never worked with Canary, because OSI Pi is not even in the same universe as Canary. They're not even in the same universe. But Canary's having trouble selling their product, and because it's expensive. And I asked them this question. I said, you guys developed this technology in 1982, right? 82 is when the compression technology came out. And so in theory, since 1982, they have experience with time series data. And in 1982, they said that they were going to enter into partnerships with all of their manufacturing customers. And they said that all the data you collect with our historian, we will share. And we'll just save it for 40 years. And then today, turned that data over to an agent. Very similar to what Mason demonstrates out here with their new, I don't even know what product they call it, but we'll call it their agent app store, okay? If those agents had access to 40 years of time series data, you could turn Canary Labs into a data company overnight. The commodity that they sold is not a historian. It's not an application. It's what we can learn from the data they acquired over 40 years. The reason Tesla is awesome is because from day one, Elon Musk said every event in our business matters. Every transition, everything that happened and when it happens matters. We may not have a use for it today, but we're gonna have a use for it. Everyone agrees Amazon is awesome, right? Does anybody not think Amazon's awesome? I hope to God no one thinks Amazon's not awesome. Okay, Amazon's awesome, and why are they awesome? Because what do you buy on Amazon? Everything. Where do you get the best price? On Amazon. And where do you get the fastest delivery? On Amazon. Okay, smart room of smart people, right? You guys are all really smart, right? If I were to put a whiteboard up here and you guys are my new research and development team, and I said, the mission of this company, I've got 3 years of runway, and we're gonna build a company where anybody can go and buy from their mobile device or a website, they're gonna buy whatever they want. How many times do you go to Amazon looking for something and they don't have it? The answer is basically never, 0.1% of the time. So they're gonna be able to buy whatever they want at the best price and get it delivered to their door in 48 hours or less. And our addressable market where we're gonna meet that goal is 99% of Americans. Okay, smart room. So I put a whiteboard up here and I go, let's design our company. How are we gonna do that?
Buy Amazon.
Buy Amazon, right? Unfortunately, Amazon didn't have that available to them in 2003, right? So what would we do? Honestly, I'm being serious. Like, let's design the company.
Pick a vertical, then expand horizontally.
Pick a vertical and expand horizontally, right? Okay, so our vertical would be books, okay? Our vertical will be books. How many books have been printed? Physical copies have been printed. You guys know how many books have ever been made? If you count all languages, this is a crazy number. Josh, do you know it? Josh will look it up. It's a massive number. I don't want to get it wrong, but I think it's 900 million. I'm pretty sure it's 900 million. So where are we gonna put 900 million books?
Do not drop ship.
We're gonna drop ship, right? Yeah. No, clearly obviously this design doesn't work, right? We're never gonna be able to sell them for the best price. We're not gonna be able to carry all of them, and we're not gonna be able to give them to everybody in 48 hours. So how much time do we need in order to be able to meet our goals? Like if we could see into the future, how far in the future do I need to be able to see in order for me able to meet our goals? If I wrote them up on the board here. Like if I could put myself in the future, how far in the future do I have to go? If I've got to deliver something in 48 hours or less, how far in the future do I have to see in order to be able to meet our objectives? Turns out it's not that far. It's 6 weeks, which turns out in our current supply chain is the average lead time. So if I wanted to order from a supplier, in general, the average lead time is about 6 weeks. So Amazon said, all we have to do is be able to predict the future 6 weeks out. And that's how Amazon does it. And crazy thing, seriously. Stephanie is gonna buy something 6 weeks from now. She's gonna buy something 6 weeks from now, and Amazon already knows she's gonna buy it. And she doesn't fucking know she's gonna buy it. And Amazon does know. AWS, they're a sponsor here. Do you know where AWS came from? This is the only reason I think Jeff Bezos is a genius. In 2003, he woke up at 2 o'clock in the morning and he was just thinking, he's an executive like me. Executives come from the world of Everybody's an idiot and there's a better way to do it. That's where executives come from. Why do we do it that way? That's ridiculous. There's a better way to do it. I'm going to start a company that does it the better way. That's where executives come from. They have that mindset, right? Bezos woke up at 2 o'clock in the morning. He said, one of the problems we have in our company is that we share entirely too much data manually. We share it through email. We share it through sneaker debt. I get out of my cubicle. I go over and I talk to Amy, and we exchange data and information. We want to turn data into decisions. We do that manually too much. We have too many spreadsheets. We send too many emails. There's too many times you ask me something that you ask me later. And so I'm serving it out to both of you twice. And Bezos literally sends an email. You can Google the email. It's 2003. He says, effective tomorrow morning at 8 a.m., we will no longer serve data out manually. You will build services for all exchanges of data and information. And it is a zero tolerance policy. And you cannot share data manually starting tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Some of you are Googling the email right now. I assure you, this is what he says. And over the next 18 months, they turn over 11% of their workforce for violations of that policy. Just that policy. And that one decision turned into Amazon Web Services. They literally built a data framework. All data and information in one place, a single source of truth. And they just built services horizontally, okay, throughout their entire business. Do you know that when you go to EC2 and you spin up a virtual machine on EC2 in AWS, you are inside of Amazon's own infrastructure. That's not some standalone data center that they're only selling to external customers. It is literally the same infrastructure they work in. Now imagine you work in IT, right? Okay, to you that's crazy to just have our customers spinning up tenants inside of our data center where all our data is. To you, that's like you've been trained over and over and over again, security and compliance, security and compliance, security and compliance. Say no first. Only say yes if someone comes back to me 4 times and starts crying and screaming and threatens to quit, right? So another reason that Tesla and Amazon are awesome is that their IT departments are service organizations. So why is being a data company important? Well, because if you are not already on the road to being a data company, you haven't started with connect, collect, store, analyze, visualize, then you can't do find patterns, report, and solve, which is what we're going to talk about today with MCP. So this conversation won't be for you. All right? All right, with that, where do I come from? So I'm Walker Reynolds. I have a YouTube channel. I'm just a YouTube guy. But actually, I am a solutions architect. The reason people listen to me is, part of it is my bubbly personality, which is definitely not true. I'm the creator of the Unified Namespace architecture, which, by the way, we were having a conversation last night. Unified Namespace to me seemed so obvious. I thought lots of people were using it, and I didn't realize it until 2013 when I was the lead architect on the largest standalone SCADA system in the world for Pioneer Natural Resources. So we did a single server implementation for 2,000 concurrent users, 11 million data points, 2 million daily alarms, covering 5 states, 40,000 devices, 14,000 sites. We did it in 18 months for $1.6 million, when the next closest bid was close to 50 million. And we won a Firebrand Award for it, 19 developers, of which I was the lead developer. And the reason people listened to me is because I won the Firebrand Award because we used my architecture called Unified Namespace. Okay, and so UNS, when you hear UNS, that's why people listen. The only reason people listen to me is because it worked. It's not because they like me very much, okay? And the other reason that people listen to me is since 2018, we've been educating the market on what the market was doing wrong, what manufacturers were doing wrong with digital transformation, why it is that they were failing. And believe me, there are still lots of manufacturers out there who are getting it wrong, and it's too late for them, okay? And the reason it's too late is because of what happened in November of 2022. Does anybody know what that is? ChatGPT, right? So in November of 2022, when ChatGPT came out, obviously the world changed. Does anyone think that ChatGPT is not a big deal? Does anybody think it's like a flash in the pan? It's a buzzword. It's the, what do they call it? The flavor of the month. Anybody think that? All right. So in January of 2023, I told my team in my companies, effective today, you are going to be working with ChatGPT with agents all day, every day. You're going to have an agent open next to you on your desktop all day, every day. You're going to buy a separate monitor. You're going to open it here, and you're going to be working with an agent all day, every day. And you're going to be a supervisor of AI agents. What do you want us to do with it? I don't know. But what I do know is that you need to know how to use this technology. That was in January of 2023, okay? And the reason I wanted my team to use it was because they needed to gain digital fluency, which is a theme you're going to hear over and over and over again, okay? Digital fluency. You have to work with the technology to familiarize with yourself with the technology, even in the simplest ways, so that you know how to unlock the potential of that technology when it really counts. Okay, digital fluency. So in January 23, everyone started working with it. And some of the things that our team has done using AI agents to run our businesses would blow your mind. Yeah, I ran an integrator that I just sold last year, my systems integrator. We did the revenue in a year that integrators that have 100 plus employees did, and we only had 23. We had double the profit margin, and we did similar revenue as integrators who had 100 plus engineers. And processes and systems played a big role in that, but agents played a huge role. Played a huge role. You know, I spent 16 weeks this year, starting in April. I gave a keynote address in Prague for Siemens Developer Days, and at that speech, I said something that really pissed off a lot of people. Actually, a guy nearly attacked me, and the only time that anyone's ever, you know, I'm a big guy, so most people don't like think to get that way with me, but this guy literally freaked out and like nearly attacked me in the hallway afterwards. This Norwegian engineer, if you're watching, I see you. I said, you must know MCP, you must know MCP, you must know MCP. That was in April of this year. Model Context Protocol really only got introduced to the world in March of this year. It was developed last year by Anthropic. To answer your question, my question, to answer the question you were going to ask that I asked, Model Context Protocol is an API for agents. That's all it is. It's an API for AI agents. Is everybody familiar with REST? You guys already know what REST is? All you IT folks better raise your hand. REST is an API for human beings. And MCP is an API for agents. And then there's another standard called agent to agent, which is an API for agents to talk to agents. MCP gives AI agents the ability to talk to software. Agent to agent gives agents the ability to talk to one another. If you go out to the Cognite, that example, they're using agent to agent out there. They're using agent to agent protocol to have two agents talk to one another. But it all started with an agent talking to software over MCP. Okay. MCP is just an API for agents, Model Context Protocol. Okay. I'm going to show you an example of it, what an MCP server looks like, what a toolkit looks like, something that I've built. Okay. In April this year, when I said, you must know MCP, you must know MCP, you must know MCP, the audience of engineers in Europe, in Prague, were pissed. They shook their heads. I said, you will not work in this industry if you do not know this technology, I promise you. You will not. If you're an engineer in Industry 4, you're an integrator, you work in IT, if you don't know how Model Context Protocol works, there is no place for you. There is no place for you. And that's not my opinion. We can measure that. Okay? Your job is going to be to work with, develop, and support AI agents. That guy flipped out on me, came out and screamed at me and, basically called me Donald Trump is actually what he did. And Siemens apologized and I laughed. And then we've done a bunch of videos and we did an MCP workshop, and the folks at HighByte, Aaron Semley, who's the CTO at HighByte, did a phenomenal workshop on Model Context Protocol at IIoT.University, which is what we run. And then they did a follow-up Model Context Protocol workshop, which I think is available on HighByte's website or YouTube channel, right? So if you guys want to learn MCP after I go through my presentation here, I want to strongly encourage you to go to HighByte's website and watch the workshop that Aaron Semley put on for free. He's the one who did it for us, which people paid to go to, right? And if you need to go more, you can come to IoT.University, okay? You want to know what's happened with Model Context Protocol since April? Okay. In April, when I said you must know MCP, you must know MCP, you must know MCP, if you installed Claude Desktop on your machine and you went to the connectors, which are MCP servers, you went to the connectors, there were 4 in April. Does anybody know how many MCP servers you can connect to with Claude today out of the box? 440 since April. This morning, I got in last night at 1 o'clock in the morning. I have 60 something companies to run. I have to make decisions for all of my employees. I got up at 8 o'clock in the morning, and by 8:15, before I got out of bed, all of my executive dashboards were built, all of my tabs were open, and all of the action items, which I will show you here, I'm going to give you 4.0 Solutions example, were available to me, and I executed everything that I needed to do for what would have taken me a week before in 15 minutes this morning. And Model Context Protocol makes that possible. Model Context Protocol makes it possible for me to take an agent, give it a business objective, give it its ability to connect to all the data sources that I work with, SQL, MQTT brokers, Notion, Stripe payment system, Kajabi, which is where we manage IIoT.University, Zoho, which is our CRM, 8 different business connectors, give it the business objective, give it some instructions on how I want the dashboard built, a JSON. I create a JSON template and say, you're going to build it this way. And then I just type in the morning, build my executive dashboard for Wednesday, October 8th, 2025. And then I go grab a drink. I put my eye drops in my eyes. I come back 2 minutes later and my dashboard is ready, and I execute all my work for the day in 15 minutes so that I can come here and speak to you guys in the afternoon. Okay? How many of you did that this morning? Nobody? Okay. Hopefully after this presentation, you will be thinking more and more about how you can leverage Model Context Protocol in your day-to-day life, but more importantly, how you're going to use it in your plants. Okay? Which is going to bring me back to my original point, which is we must focus on the problem. Okay, so what is the problem manufacturers face? They face 2 fundamental problems. Every manufacturer, they're all the same. They only have 2 problems. One is efficiency, okay? And one is optimization. How do we become more efficient, and how do we optimize? Both of those require decisions. You want to know where decisions come from? They come from data. So the problem that you are always solving with any technology is the conversion of data into a decision. That is it. Every single thing you do. I challenge you to come up with a single use case that is not data to decision. whether it's TEEP, OEE, mean time to repair, mean time between failure, downtime, Pareto's, yield, you name it, anything that is tracked is either we're trying to solve efficiency or optimization, and we're trying to turn data into some decision. Okay, so the problem is always converting data into a decision. Okay, and the reason I bring that up is out there, how many of you walked out there and thought, man, this is really awesome, but I don't know how to use any of this stuff. I don't even know where I would start. I don't even know where I would start if I wanted to put this stuff in my plant. How many of you actually work in manufacturing? Sorry, I normally ask that. How many of you said, I don't even know where I would start? Why? What's the reason? I mean, you believe that most of that stuff you saw out there is like, wow, this is really impressive, right? Did you look at any of it and go, yeah, I don't see the point?
That was my second week on the job, so just wanted to
Second week in manufacturing?
Yeah,
Really? Where'd it come from?
supply chain, distribution.
Okay, well, you're more valuable than the people who've been working in manufacturing. Want to know another reason Tesla's awesome? He's a supply chain guy, if you guys didn't hear. Does anybody know what supply chain is? I mean, can anyone tell me succinctly what supply chain is? So a third grader understands. By the way, I'll give you guys a piece of advice. This is some professional development stuff. Always pretend you're stupid.
Distribution of goods from a producer to a consumer?
Yeah, down a chain. Distribution of goods from a producer to a consumer, down a chain. That's the old way, by the way. So we call it supply chain for a reason. They're linked together. In the traditional supply chain, which links are you aware of? You're only aware of two links. The one directly above stream from upstream and one downstream. What is a digital supply chain? Hint, it's why Tesla is awesome. A digital supply chain means that you're a member of an ecosystem that connects you to all the possible suppliers and all the possible customers, not just the ones you work with. Traditional supply chain issues are because we have a long list of suppliers, and we have a long list of customers, and we spend all of our time chasing down our suppliers' deliverables, and we spend all of our time trying to get our customers to buy the stuff that we produce, and we're only connected to the people upstream and downstream from us. Tesla's connected to the entire supply chain, and they do that through Tesla Warp. They created a digital ecosystem where they require all of their suppliers to be a member of their digital ecosystem. So when Saint-Gobain, who makes the glass in a Tesla, the passenger side glass, when Saint-Gobain is producing that glass, Tesla doesn't get on the phone and say, hey, where's our delivery? Okay, Tesla is automatically scheduling the production of their cars based on the delivery time that no one ever called about. They're unified together. All of Tesla's backup suppliers, so if Saint-Gobain's gonna miss a delivery, do they wait on Saint-Gobain? No. They predict Saint-Gobain's gonna miss a delivery, and then they pivot immediately to a backup supplier. You know, the reason General Motors this is a controversial take, but it is absolutely empirical certainty. General Motors will die. They will die. It's crazy, you think about that. The number of people who are employed through that supply chain. And General Motors has no chance of survival. Zero, do not pass go, do not collect $200. And it's because General Motors is not a digital company and they haven't even started. Okay, so with the supply chain thing, one of the ultimate goals, I'm going to show a slide here in a second, is you become a digital company first to solve your own problems. And then you plug into a digital supply chain to optimize the way you deliver to your customers. Okay, and there is a sequence that organizations do this in. And I'm going to show you where we are in that sequence. All right, so we're going to go, how did we get here? The revolutions, digital transformation. We're going to talk about what is AI. I'll just answer it right now. Can anybody tell me what the difference between artificial intelligence and machine learning? For 15 years, we were talking about let's use machine learning to do predictive analytics, right? How many of you realized predictive analytics with machine learning? Okay, if you raise your hand, I am definitely calling on you. You're going to have to explain how you did it. How many of you spent any money on machine learning for predictive analytics? None. What's the difference between ML and AI? Any of the smart guys over here? All right, artificial intelligence is using computers to mimic human intelligence. That's all AI is. Using computers to mimic human intelligence. Machine learning is using computers to learn from data. That is the third grader and the succinct response. Machine learning is a subset of artificial intelligence. Agentic AI, AI agents that are trained on large language models and large reasoning models, they are a subset of AI. Okay? Machine learning is a technique that was used to help train large language models. Does everybody know how a large language model works before we keep going? How does a LLM? All a large language model does is try to predict the next word. The word that has the highest likelihood of being the next word is the one that they write. That's all a large language model does. It takes the context you pass into it. Context is what you put in the prompt and anything it's connected to. And it says, from this context, what is the likely next word I need to say? And it keeps going until there isn't a word that has a greater than a 96% likelihood of being the next word, and therefore it's a period, and they're all done. That's how large language models work. Very simple. Okay? Controversial take that you guys will take away from this. Large language models are not the technology that will change our lives. There's another technology coming. We don't know what it is. Okay, like, is anybody worried that AI is going to take your job and all that kind of stuff? Who here is scared of artificial intelligence? They think that the robots are going to take us over. Does anybody think that? Do you really? Okay, yeah, all right. So let me dispel that myth right away, okay? Artificial intelligence are there dangers in AI? Of course there are. Why is it I don't worry about them? Because I believe in the power of humanity. That's why. I'm not cynical when it comes to human beings, okay? I do believe that the vast majority of people want to do good in this world in spite of the number of people in this world who want to do shitty things, okay? So humanity will figure out a way to keep guardrails around AI. I don't need to worry about it. Just like I don't need to worry about that my plane might crash on the way back to Dallas tonight, because it's much more likely I'm going to get struck by lightning walking out of this building, okay? Someone else is worrying about the safety. I'm not going to worry about it that much. But here's the big reason why we don't have to worry about AI. You know, Sonnet 4.5 just came out, and GPT-5 from OpenAI just came out. And how big of a step forward was GPT-4 to GPT-5? How big forward was it? Was it an exponential leap? It was not an exponential leap. In fact, we saw the first diminishing returns between 4 and 5, which means that the ceiling for large language models is much lower than we thought it was. Okay? Sonnet 4.5, the jump to Sonnet 4.5 was not an exponential jump. From GPT 3 to 4, we saw exponential. From 4 to 5, we saw diminishing returns. What does that tell us in a trend? It tells us that the ceiling is much lower than we thought it was. So large language models are not, we are starting to realize that they have massive limitations. Massive limitations. So really, the large language models is the first groundbreaking innovation that is setting us up for the next groundbreaking innovation. So generative AI, general AI, that's not happening with LLMs. It's not happening with LRMs. So what does that mean? Okay, another thing I want to make sure I convey to you guys is that the power of artificial intelligence is in how it makes human beings better. It is a symbiotic relationship. AI and human intelligence are not mutually exclusive. They are symbiotic. Just like when, go ahead.
What about the argument that it's making us dumb?
It is making us dumber, but it's not making all of us dumber. And so as long as it doesn't make all of us dumber, it is making, we're always going to have people who get dumber, right? The real concern is, and it's a good question, here's the real question. I have written 6.5 million lines of code. Well, I told you about the 16 weeks, after my speech in April, from May, for 16 weeks, starting in May, I worked basically 16 hours a day with 10 agents. I had 10 workstations set up in my lab, and I would work with them 10 minutes at a time. I would do 2-week sprints, 10 minutes at a time, 10 agents, okay? 16 hours a day. And I built a simple Bible app, basically the app that I want, that uses artificial intelligence to do commentary for me and it gives me the ability to interact with the Bible. I also built UNS Studio, which as of today is 3.1 million lines of code. I guarantee Tulip is not over 1 million lines of code. I'll guarantee that the Tulip code base is not 1 million lines of code. But in 16 weeks, I wrote 6 million lines of code. That is 75 man-years of work. And I did that with agents. Agents made me Superman. Okay? Just like when you get married, the guys in here who have been married, one of the things that you'll all say, if you marry the right woman, she's going to make a good man, a great man, Superman. Why? Because it's a symbiotic relationship. And that is not a controversial take. Anybody who's been married will say the same thing. I'm a much better man because I married her. Okay? Except for those of you who had nasty divorces, which I apologize for. There's a symbiotic relationship between human intelligence and artificial intelligence. You are the supervisor who brings the human element, puts in the guardrails, and gives the agents their context and their instructions and their objectives. You are the one that takes the output and decides whether or not to execute. And the agent is the one who is your nail gun. The nail gun doesn't build the house, just makes you build the house faster. That's all agents are, okay? Are there people who are losing their jobs because of AI? Yes, because there are stupid executives out there. But what will the trend ultimately show us? They're getting rehired. They're getting rehired, okay? The real implication for artificial intelligence in manufacturing, the real implication is this. Those of you who work in manufacturing, there are 2 things I learned in the 12 years I worked in. I started in mining. I worked in a salt mine in upstate New York for 5 years, and then I worked in the printing industry for 2 years, and then I worked in the steel industry, and then I worked in tier 1 automotive. So I worked on the plant floor. I was never, ever, in manufacturing, I was never higher than a senior engineer. And I started out shoveling belts. So I've done everything in manufacturing, and it was by design. I wanted to know manufacturing inside and out. There are 2 things that I learned. 3. We'll start with the first one, the most important one. Who are the smartest people in any manufacturing facility? Who are they? They are the operators. And anyone who doesn't think that the operator is the smartest person in a manufacturing facility doesn't spend enough time with operators or has not earned their trust. I am telling you right now, I'll tell you a story, because this is a 90-minute presentation. I worked for Borg Warner Automotive. That was my last stop in manufacturing before I became a consultant. And I was a manufacturing and process engineer. So I worked in the chain division at Borg Warner. And I was responsible for punch presses, the pin machines, and the heat treat systems. And we were our own OEM. So we would design our own equipment, and we made chain that went into differentials and timing chain, right? We would build the equipment that would get shipped to India and Mexico and all of our locations all over the world, including our own manufacturing facility in upstate New York. So I supported manufacturing, and I supported all the global implementation in those 3 verticals. And it was the only time I ever worked in a union. I wasn't in a union, I was a company. But we had a union in that facility. And they were getting ready to go on strike. And I had only been at Borg Warner like maybe a year. And I had a very close relationship with the plant manager. His wife was on the local school board with me. And we go in and it's all these salaried people. You know, there's like 300 of us in there. There's 1,000 people who work at this facility. And they're telling us how we're going to prepare for the strike. And what they're doing is they're telling us we're going to run the equipment. And he was dead serious. He was like, what we're going to do is we're going to keep producing and we're going to run the equipment. And he was like, and you know, you're going to run assembly and you're going to run heat treat and you're going to run punch presses, and we're going to run 4 of the 30 presses every shift and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like looking around the room and I'm looking for other people shaking their head, because in my head, I'm like, no, we're not. We're going to break the equipment, but we're not going to run it. And so I raised my hand, because I have a big mouth. And I raised my hand, and his name was Alex. Alexander, actually. Why his parents did that to him. His name was Alexander. Seriously. And his middle name was, it began with a B. But anyway, I said, Alex, you're kidding, right? Like, we're just posturing here. Like, this is just us to get them to, you know, settle the strike or whatever. He's like, no, we're going to run the equipment. And I said, do we think they're monkeys? Like, just for my own, is our official position, those folks out there who have been running these machines for 30 years, who can tell you what's broken by what they heard, we think they're monkeys. And everybody was looking around. I'm like, there's no chance we're going to go out there and run that equipment. It doesn't matter how smart I am or what degree I have. We can't run that shit. They know that equipment inside and out. They know our business inside and out. They know our processes inside and out. Your greatest ally in any manufacturing facility are the operators, the mechanics, and the electricians. You can get rid of everybody else in the company. You only need those 3 groups of people: operators, mechanics, electricians. That's it. Seriously. If you work in manufacturing and you are not in one of those 3 groups, you are as replaceable as the bottom of my shoe. Your job is to support them. The operators are the smartest people in any organization. Part of the reason I love Tulip, who does Tulip prioritize? Oh, the operator. Mark Friedman, you guys know, if you guys follow LinkedIn at all, Mark used to work here. And now he has a company called Make Yourself AI, right? So Mark is a brilliant, when it comes to model context protocol, you've got Aaron Semley at HighByte, you got Mark Friedman. You know, they're the top 2 dudes on the list. Part of the reason Mark and I are so close and we agree, we like each other so much, is because we both agree that the operator is the most important person in the organization. When you're using artificial intelligence in your business, when you're using technology in your business, there is only one person you have to make happy. It is the operator. So when we are talking about using model context protocol on shop floors, our primary focus has to be on making the operator's job easier. What is the one thing you can never do when you introduce technology into manufacturing? It's only one thing. By the way, you could be insecure. You could literally expose the network to the internet if you want to, as long as you don't do this other thing. What's the one thing you can never do? You can never make the operator's job harder, not even for 1 minute. It is the surefire way of guaranteeing failure. You can never, ever, ever make the operator's job harder. So when we are talking about using model context protocol on the shop floor, you must drill it into your brain. If I am not making the operator's job easier, I failed. You can't give them more work. Say it again. You cannot give them more work unless you take work away. So I can take 4 steps away and add in 1 new one so that I can net -3. Operator loves you. They're happy. And if the operator's happy, who else is happy? Everybody else. Everybody else. Okay? So when we talk about model context protocol on the shop floor, make the operator's job easier. What is AI? It's just mimicking human intelligence. And remember, it is not about replacing people with AI. It's about using AI to make people better. These are fundamental, foundational concepts. Fundamental and foundational. And by the way, true fact, a third of you in here disagree with me. A third of you, for sure, disagree with me. But the fact that you're not raising your hand and challenging me says more about you than it does about me, because I'll answer your question. All right, so how we got here, this is very important. Does anybody know the history of the industrial revolutions? Like how they work and technology S-curves and all that kind of stuff? Okay. The steam engine was where it all started, when we converted heat into mechanical energy, all right? The assembly line, through electrification, okay? Electrification was the generic industrial revolution, but for us in manufacturing, the assembly line in 1913 is when everything changed. The technological advancement was electricity. The assembly line was the result for us. And then in 1969, the PLC was invented. Everybody know what a PLC is? All right. The PLC is the reason why digital transformation was possible. Okay, PLC is just a computer running on the edge, and it is literally the brain of your process. And digital transformation was about taking all the data we could collect from those brains and joining them together through OT, IT convergence, so that we can combine together business data on the IT side with process data on the OT side, so that we could convert data into decisions, so that we could drive efficiency and optimization. Okay? The result of that was that you became a digital company that made products that get better after your customers buy them. I'll say it again. You make products that get better after your customer buys them. It's very important to understand this. I'll say it one more time. You make products that get better after your customers buy them. Okay? Because when I compare and contrast MCP with REST, this is a very, very important point. Okay, so one last time. Digital companies make products that get better after the customers buy them. This is one of the reasons Tesla is awesome. Okay, the car that you get delivered to your house is not the car you are driving 1 year from now. It is more efficient, it is safer, it has new features, it is a completely different car. It's just a vessel. The car itself is just a sensor. What you drive is software, okay? All right, and then with ChatGPT in 2022, go ahead, Matt.
I have a question. So you mentioned Tesla again. So they still haven't delivered autopilot in any meaningful way that it's not full self-driving and Mercedes keep them to it. So
yeah, but that isn't true. So the premise is they haven't delivered autopilot, right?
they haven't delivered. I forgot what the exact levels of full self-driving are.
Right, the level 5 autopilot, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so what have they delivered though?
Level 3.5, level 4. They're one level below Mercedes.
So what does that mean?
So
Actually, they're not one level below. So there's a qualifier in the way that they did that test. But for the sake of this discussion, I'll accept Mercedes is ahead.
So the different levels, I believe it's a legal, legal precedent or legal notice of if there's an accident, shifts from the driver to the manufacturer.
Correct. But what's the question? The question is, you've mentioned Tesla, they haven't delivered X. They also haven't delivered a baby on the moon. Why is not delivering X important?
You're saying that it's a software company and that the car is about being better, but I would argue that over the past few years it's stagnated.
Really? Who here drives a Tesla?
Okay. Who's tried V14 of FSD? Me too. Okay. So I had V12 when so I've owned 4 Teslas. Thank God to Zach to make me buy a Tesla. I don't like spending money on cars, but he said, you talk about them all the time, you better buy one because otherwise no one's going to listen to you. I'm on my 4th, okay? When I first bought my Tesla, we were on V12 FSD. V12 FSD, if I used full self-driving, so it changes lanes and it drives down the road and modulates speed and it does everything, and have this little camera, and if I looked away for just a second, it would yell at me, and I would have to intervene on just a 2-hour drive to my ranch in East Texas on I-20. I'd have to intervene 6, 7, 8 times. It would kick out on V12. On V13, that went down to once. On V14, I've completed 8-hour drives. 2 8-hour drives now on V14 without a single intervention. Not only that, V14 parks the damn car for me. And the other day, she's not my girlfriend, okay? But I don't know what to call her, so I'm gonna call her my girlfriend. She was riding in the Tesla with my daughter-in-law. We have a Model Y. And my daughter-in-law hates driving. So from the moment she pulls out of the driveway, she puts the car in full self-driving. And the car drives all the way to her destination, and it parks itself. In V14, it parks the car and everything. No interventions ever. And my girlfriend said, I hate driving too. I need to get one of these. I assure you, if full self-driving is not autopilot, then I don't know what autopilot is. Because I know that the pilots who flew me here last night, they were using autopilot, and autopilot took off the plane, and it landed the plane, and it flew the plane, and it did everything except driving it into the gate. And full self-driving drives you to the gate. So if they call it autopilot, then I'm gonna call it autopilot, especially when it does more. The reality is don't fall into the trap that just because Elon makes promises it takes them longer to deliver on, doesn't mean that they're not delivering on the promises, right? It's focusing on the wrong, it's the, you have kids? No. Okay, you're gonna have kids someday, you want to be a dad? Yeah. Okay, so I'll give you some life advice as a father. Set the bar high. Never set the bar low. Never set the bar so low it's easy to attain the goal. And Elon Musk, as an executive, his job is to set the bar high. I do it all the time with my team. I make promises they've got to deliver on. And I make promises that if they were left to make the promise, they'd set the bar lower. Okay? But at the end of the day, Tesla's still delivering that. I mean, at the end of the day, the only maintenance you do on the car is change the tires. If you swap the battery in the first 10 years, they pay for it at 100,000 miles. It is the maintenance per mile on a Tesla is 0.14 of what it is on an internal combustion engine. So that is how many if you pay $1 per mile to maintain your ICE, you pay 14 cents on your Tesla. Like across the board. It's carbon neutral at 60,000 miles. And yet we still live in a world, this just drives me nuts. Elon Musk has done more for humanity than all other human beings who have ever lived combined. And yet there are people who just, I don't think you're a hater, but I think what you said there comes from haters. At the end of the day, we can just measure the progress. We can measure it. All right, GPT. All right, I'm 1 minute ahead of schedule. All right, I want to talk about one other thing before we get into the MCP. And I want to show you how you're going to use MCP on the plant floor. All right, this is really important, and I was talking to Adam Kennedy about this earlier from Litmus. All right, so when we are looking at these technological revolutions, okay, there are 2 phases each time we are going through a technological revolution. We are either in the technological revolution or we are jumping to the next one. And in Japanese, anybody familiar with Kaizen, in Japanese Kaizen? Okay. In Kaizen, there is a term called Kaku. Okay? And Kaku is a technological breakthrough where we're going to operate on different rules. We're going to try and achieve the same things, but we're going to abandon the mindset of continuous improvement, and we're going to rewrite the rule book. Okay? Right now, we are in Kaku again. Right after GPT was introduced, we're rewriting the rule book right now, which is why I'm giving a speech on model context protocol for the plant floor, okay, and AI agents. And I'm not talking about digital transformation, connect, collect, store, analyze, visualize, okay? When you are there in the middle, in where the lighthouse is, in Kaku, The biggest risk to any organization is all the things that you learned in the previous technological period. So this right here is return on investment. We have a technology breakthrough and we invest dollars. Over time, we're investing dollars and we don't start seeing return on investment initially. Why? Because we're stupid. We're dumb. We don't know what we don't know. Brings me back to digital fluency, okay? The reason that people had to start working with ChatGPT in January of 2023 is because we were dumb. And we had to become fluent. And what I wanted to do was get ahead of that flat tail at the very beginning. By the time everybody else was adopting agents, I wanted us to be up on this upswing in our ROI. And by the time most people were adopting agents, we had already doubled our revenue. It took other organizations a year to tell their team to start working with agents. If I was a manufacturer, when in probably 2015, I would have gone to my IT department and I would have said, open our networks, make it required for our employees to carry their cell phones and tablets on them, and encourage them to use Google to solve their own problems. That's what I would have done in 2015. But what did most manufacturers do at that time? You're not allowed to have your phone on you. You're not allowed to get on the Wi-Fi. Okay? They kept their employees stupid. They kept them ignorant. All right? But important thing to note, during these technological revolutions, we have a period where we are seeing massive return on our investments if we do it right. We have the right strategy, we use the right technology, we got the right architecture, we partner with the right people. We will see massive return. If we make it past that early period, that's the POC phase, that's called POC purgatory, that bottom flat line where we're seeing no return. But once we figure it out, the sky's the limit until it isn't. We start seeing diminishing returns on the investment and it starts to flatten out. And if we're on track, if you're on track, you should have started to see lower and lower return on investment when it came to digital transformation right about the time ChatGPT came out. If you hadn't even started, then you're an entire revolution behind, okay? But when we get to the lighthouse phase in the middle, which is where we are right now, which is why this speech is the one that has to be given on this day, we're rewriting the rule book. Right now out there, those are all proposed plays. Everything out there are proposed plays. They are proposed rules for the future. Some of them are going to make it, not all of them will. That's where we are right now.
Would you say the organization is already 3.0 yet?
Okay. Unless the market is cornered, so that's always the caveat, like do I get written into the spec? Do I have a buddy at the Department of Defense? You know what I mean? Take those caveats out. If I'm competing in an open market and I'm not even industry 3, then you better own the intellectual property. Okay, you better have it patented, you better not be exposed, or someone's gonna chew you up and spit you out. The only reason you haven't been chewed up and spit out yet is because someone hasn't figured out that you're vulnerable. That's it. But I mean, that's not a strategy. That's luck, right? That's what I would say to them, okay? And when it gets to, let's say they decide, hey, we want to become industry 3, we want to become industry 4, then it's about deciding a brownfield and greenfield strategy. Where do we rip and replace? Where do we optimize? Where do we let it fall off? Now it becomes a technological strategy. But the first thing is admitting you have a problem. Okay? Here's how you know an organization is in trouble today. Okay? They are led by a poor leader, and that poor leader is almost certainly from marketing, business development with an MBA. Okay? And the organizations who are best positioned are led by technologists. They're led by engineers. They're led by software developers. They can have an MBA, great. I don't recommend getting one. But if having an MBA doesn't disqualify you, but if those are the 3 letters you put after your your bio, then you're probably the wrong leader. Okay? It's very easy to tell when you are assessing, does an organization get it? Do they not get it? Start right at the top. We were talking about Litmus. You know, why I love Litmus booth out here. Their CEO and founder is a guy named Vatsal Shah, right? And people ask me, why do you love Litmus so much? I went to the Warren Buffett School of Investment. When I go meet companies, I care deeply about who the leader is. Why am I big on Highbite? Because I'm big on Tony Payne. Tony Payne is one of the co-founders and the leaders at Highbite. The right leader will figure it out. Vatsal Shah will figure it out. Vatsal slept on couches in Silicon Valley with no money and wouldn't take any money from his parents to start his company. His story is crazy. It is crazy. Tony Payne led the development of Kepler over 2 decades, turned it into an elite connectivity platform, and then he jumped to data ops. That's shooting fish in a barrel. It's a guaranteed success. Leadership really, really matters. But if you don't know their backstory, then look at their credentials. Technologists will figure it out. Right now, they will. Where do you need the MBA? You need the MBA here, in the middle of continuous improvement. So once we've jumped the hurdle, then we take that marketing person, that business development person, that MBA, and we put them in charge. Okay? Because what is continuous improvement? It's a fine whittling. It's incremental improvement. But what happens when you're seeing that lighthouse there? That's groundbreaking innovation. That's 100% return year over year. It's not pennies, right? All right, and I just want to touch on one last thing, which is the employee of the future. What are you going to use MCP and agents for? You're going to use MCP and agents to serve the employee of the future. Okay? I have 3 sons. One of them's here, and one of them's an engineer. One of them's is going to Texas A&M. And my middle son, who's an engineer in this industry, he's 21 years old. He has a degree in engineering, but he is completely self-taught in this industry. And one of the greatest gifts that I was given was him, because I got to see, his name's Jared, and I got to see his capabilities. If you give someone with his brain and his age the tools that are available today, none of us can compete with them. I've said this over and over and over again, and I don't know how you guys feel about Gen Z and millennials and all that stuff, but they are so much smarter than we are. Okay? They are so much more intelligent than we are. It's not even remotely close. They're androids. Like, they are so much smarter. But they don't have wisdom. Okay? Like, they knew tomato was a fruit before we did. They still don't know not to put it in a fruit salad. Okay? That's intelligence and wisdom. Young people are so much smarter than us. And the employee of the future, they're the young people that we give technology to. Have you ever watched a 15-year-old use their iPhone? I've been using an iPhone for 10 years. Okay? I've been using an iPhone for 10 years. Okay? I went to an Ivy League school. I have 2 degrees plus a graduate degree. I have an IQ over 150. I've made millions of dollars in my life. I am probably the prototype of a very successful person. And when I see a 15-year-old working with their iPhone, I feel like a monkey. Do you ever see the gestures that they do that you never think to use? Right? Why? Why is it young people are able to unlock the potential and tools so much better than us? And I can type 120 words a minute, and I can write 1,000 lines of code from scratch a day, and I still can't use an iPhone. I can't use technology the way they do. The employee of the future is the person who grew up under technology and who has the ability to unlock the potential in that technology in ways we cannot possibly fathom. And when you are taking artificial intelligence and you are putting it on the plant floor, you have got to get out of the mindset that you are putting it there for the people who work there now. Because you're not. You're putting it there for the people who will work there in the future, the employee of the future. But you're going to solve the problems of the people who work there now. But the person who's really going to unlock the potential in the technology is the employee of the future. Okay? All right, model context protocol. Let's go through this. All right, a couple things real quick I just want to go through. So if you guys, unified namespace is an important part of what this demonstration here. If you want to know what unified namespace is, which is an architecture, you can go to virtualfactory.online. You could go it on your phone right now and you can see the same UNS. All right. One of the exercises I'm going to show is how an agent builds an operator dashboard for line 1 in the press area in Dallas from this data. Okay. What are some of the future implications for agentic AI? All right. Well, number one, working inside of platforms to build things, like going into like a designer environment and wiring data and grabbing components and dragging them on a screen and then doing indirection so that I can create dynamic visualizations where I can select the drop down, line 1, line 2, line 3, and the same window will populate the data for all 3 windows. That skill is no longer valuable. You will not do that anymore, okay? We're going to use AI agents plugged into MCP servers to give it instructions about what we want it to build. You're going to build me a visualization for X, Y, and Z, build me a definition for this visualization, a definition that you're going to use to rebuild this visualization on the fly. Okay? Unified namespace is the underlying architecture, what I'm going to show you here, though. Okay? All right, so let's go real quick. REST versus model context protocol. The reason we have to do this is that in order to understand how agents use MCP, you need to first understand how humans use REST. Is that who here doesn't know REST at all? They've never even heard of it. REST, okay. REST is essentially an API. Whenever you see 2 pieces of software talking to one another, generally they are talking over REST. Generally, REST is basically as a URL endpoint, okay? As a URL endpoint, it uses nouns, verbs, and adjectives for you to retrieve the data that you are looking for. So the noun is machines. The verb is get, and the adjective is all the arguments you are saying you are giving it so that it gives you the right machine. Okay, so the noun would be go to the machine's endpoint, go to the URL machine's endpoint. I want you to get the machine that is line 1 in this area. Okay, you just pass in these parameters. What is returned is a result set in the form of a JSON. Does anybody here not know what a JSON is? JavaScript object notation? Really? Every single person in here knows JSON? Really? You don't? Okay. So JSON is basically a text structure. It's like XML. It's basically a schema of key value pairs. So I may have a JSON, which is a text that's returned where it says name, Walker. First name, Walker. Last name, Reynolds. Okay. Age, 51. Right? That the result set returns in JSON, and then the application has to parse the JSON to get informed, and then it has to make another call to the REST API. If the value of first name is Walker, then do this other thing. You hit the endpoint again. So the idea is that integrating with REST takes a lot of time, and there's a lot of you can't go right now to any program in your business and go, which of my production lines is the worst performing and why? You can't ask that question right now. And the reason why is because the amount of money it would take to engineer the logic to use a REST API to give you that answer accurately, the engineering is too expensive. No one's going to pay for it. It would be hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. It would be many, many, many permutations to be able to find out which production line is operating the worst and why. Okay? What people are trying to do right now is they're using agents, using model context protocol, the API the agent uses to talk to software, to build dashboards. Hey, build me a dashboard for this data. Or which production line is producing the worst and why. Or I'm a new operator in this area, in the press area in Dallas, describe the process to me. I don't really know how it works. They're using agents for that kind of stuff, okay? That's at the very bottom of the tail, all right? But you wanna know who really what advanced people are doing? They're saying, hey, I'm the supervisor, build me my dashboard for this morning and tell me what I should spend the next 2 hours on. Not, don't make me make the decision, you use the data to make the decision for me, okay? And I'll approve it, all right? So REST, the important thing to understand here is that REST uses nouns, verbs, and adjectives. You have to, if I wanted to find out which production line was producing the worst and why, I would have to write code that would call the API for the line 1 OEE data, and then I'd have to write code to call API for line 2, line 3, write code to compare and rank, call the API for downtime events, call the API for quality issues, write more code to analyze the root cause, format a response for the supervisor, hours and hours and hours for every one of those questions. And I'd have to get all the questions right. I would have to create a decision tree and get all the permutations correct. The reason it doesn't exist in your plant today is because that costs way too much money. That's why it doesn't exist. It's not because the technology doesn't give you the ability to build this right now before agents. You could have built this 10 years ago. The only reason you haven't built it is because it would cost too much money. And then magically, because of Model Context Protocol, we were able to bolt agents into data. And then we could just ask it which line is not working well and why. And because large language models and large reasoning models can do the thinking for us, and Model Context Protocol gives it the tools that it can use, it could give us an answer, okay? So agents reason through the objective. So I want to show you what an MCP server looks like real quick. Right here. So this is something called, so this is UNS Studio. This is one of the things that I built. I use it to teach. So this is the one that has millions of lines of code in the backend, all right? So there is an MCP server running in here. So real quick, I have a broker right here. I'm gonna connect to that broker, which is the one I just showed you that has our production line. And then just to show you, we'll go to this UNS browser. So this is, Enterprise will show up here in a second. And if you go to Dallas, we go to press, we go to line 1, okay, we have all of our data. Now I can go to I have my MCP server, I can go to my MCP client, okay, and I have a client who's just like an agent, okay? And the agent can review the server in UNS Studio. And so what's in there is a list of tools, and I know that's hard to see, but I'll read the tools to you. The agent connected to UNS Studio can get the broker configurations, what are all the brokers we're connected to. It can get available simulators, get running simulators, it can get any active topic. So it has a description there. It can get the topic payload, it can get the topic by pattern, it can get the topic by hierarchy, topic history, simulator details, broker status, active broker, and GUI status. All right, if I ask the agent a question, it knows it has these tools in its tool bag. It knows it's connected to the UNS Studio MCP server, and it knows it can do those questions. I may ask a question like, how is line 1 performing? And what the agent is gonna do is it's gonna reason and go, okay, which of these tools do I need to query to even find out what the fuck line 1 is? All right? So it's probably gonna go to get active topics, and it's gonna execute that, and it's gonna return this big, massive context window. So what's in there is just a bunch of text, and all it is, it's looking for line 1 in that text. And it finds line 1, and it grabs the path for line 1, and then it says, well, I wanna get the topic payload for that path. And then I would have to enter in a path, it would return the result set, and it's reasoning through these tools. It's literally building the logic as it goes using Model Context Protocol. Model Context Protocol serves the tools to the agent, and then the agent uses the tools to get the answers so it can reason, and then it can meet the objective you gave it, all right? So here's an example. This morning, so that you guys don't have to watch the agent reason through all this stuff, I do this report every morning. So my question is, build my dashboard for October 8th, 2025. The agent, I put this instruction in. The agent has access to the Notion MCP server. Is anybody familiar with Notion? Okay, Notion is an IIoT tool that we track all of our KPI data. We have an automation that basically builds a table that has all the KPIs, right? So we're connected to Notion. We're connected to Stripe, which is our payment system. We are connected to Google Drive, which has a spreadsheet that has all of our students in it. We are connected to Zoho. We are connected to Gmail, and we're connected to Google Calendar. The only instruction I give the agent in the morning is build my dashboard for October 8th. It goes to the instruction set. There's a little JSON in there. It tells it how to build this, and then it reasons through. It hits all. It goes, what tools do I have available? And I'm gonna build this dashboard. I want to hit pause right there. All right. That agent is using a large language model. Okay, and that large language model today is Sonnet 4.5. However, a few weeks ago, it was Sonnet 4. Okay? There is a very, very important distinction when it comes to using model context protocol and agents. The integration that you do one time, that I've done this integration once. There is if I go to Claude Desktop and you go to the project and you see the instruction set with the JSON, it says, here's the prompt, here's the JSON for building the dashboard. Whenever you see the executive say, build my dashboard for this time, it goes to the instruction set, it hits all the tools, it pulls all the data, it builds the dashboard while I'm putting the eye drops in my eyes, okay? When it does that every single day, as long as I'm using the same model and the model hasn't been updated, nothing will change. But guess what happened when it went to Sonnet 4.5? It got way faster. So instead of 2 minutes, now it's done in 12 seconds. Okay? So what are the implications for the future here? When I first started doing this a few months ago, using agents to build UI on the fly, so this dashboard right here for user this is all the key numbers: revenue, cash on hand, MRR, pipeline, business pillars. It's got MRR, pipeline versus forecast. This gives me insight into everything immediately. Where do we stand right now? It gives us the performance highlights. And then I hit action items and priorities. And just so you know this data is real, I have the HiveMQ leadership introduction call with Barry Liebert, who's the new CEO at HiveMQ. And I really do have that meeting tomorrow. Okay, the agent tells me all the things I must do and puts them in the right priority. And this all takes 10 seconds now. That's what happens to me as the user. What does it look like for the operator? It looks like just like this. So that same line 1, press operations, this is a live dashboard on line 1 right now, built by an agent using model context protocol. Real quick, okay? It's built the dashboard that we decided. We gave it a definition. It builds this dashboard on the fly. What is the primary implication going forward? All of you who build visualizations today, you will not build visualizations. You will use agents to create templates for your visualizations, and the agent will build the visualization on the fly. The moment you open the window, the agent is going to generate the code that's going to build the dashboard like that. Compute will get faster and faster and faster and faster. And you won't even know it. You will have no idea it's an agent writing that code from scratch. Because every single time I ask it to build this dashboard, it rewrites the React code. It consumes the instruction set and the template and rewrites it. The instruction makes sure it always looks the same. So there's a JSON that basically says, for equipment status, you're going to break it into the areas. You're going to use blue, yellow, and green. Okay? All right, your question.
So really quick, what are you guys doing to manage hallucinations from now on? All of that stuff is
Good question here on hallucinations. Oh, real quick, the second part here is, this is the agent telling the operator what they must focus on. The agent reasoned through what they must focus on, okay? To answer your question on hallucination, is everybody familiar with hallucinations? And if you're using ChatGPT, a hallucination is basically when the agent tells you something that you clearly know is insanity, okay? Also, sometimes they tell you things that you don't clearly know is insanity, okay? That's the worst type of hallucination, when they convince you that what they told you is truth, okay? Have you ever gone down the rabbit hole with an agent? You've asked it a question, it gave you an answer that you knew was very, very biased, and so then you kept asking it questions. I mean, aren't you missing the blind spot here? Why did you assume X, Y, or Z? Why did you just, why did you apply bias to your response? And you go back and forth with the agent and you argue with it, and eventually the agent, you can walk it to the right conclusion at the very end, right? Okay, what is a hallucination? Okay, a hallucination in agentic AI comes from context. So when you write a prompt, that's context for the agent. There's two sets of context for an agent. Context number one is the context it was trained on, the model that it was trained on. That's context number one. That is not variable, that is constant. Okay, it is constant to the model itself. The second type of context is the context we give it and it gives itself. Okay, so when you give it a prompt and you interact with an agent, every word you type and every word it types is context. It goes into the chat context, okay? Hallucinations come from when the context has conflicting data in it. So one of the most important things you have to do is when you connect agents to your data through an MCP server, for example, you have to make sure that none of those tools, the tools themselves, don't return conflicting information. So if I ask it a question like, what is the OEE on line 1, and it reasons through several tools and it gets two answers. Line 1 OEE is 87%, line 1 OEE is 83%. Which one is it going to tell you it is? When you ask it the question, what is OEE, and it gets two responses from the data sources, what answer will it give you? It'll give you a third answer. A hallucination is when it can't choose between the two. If it has conflicting data, it will not pick one of the two. It will give you the third, one that doesn't exist. That's a hallucination, and that's one type of hallucination. Yeah. All right, any questions for me? Go ahead.
Yeah.
My question, just to continue on that one, isn't it based on data accuracy and the data that is coming in as an input? Isn't hallucinations more of based on that? Don't we need to make sure that data entry coming in needs to be clean and make sure it's correct and going in the right format?
The hallucination is not created from unformatted, it is conflict. So, okay. The argument could be that a lack of format could make it look like data was in conflict. But at the end of the day, if the agent has two results for the same answer, it makes up a third answer. Okay, so if it interprets two result sets, it says, if it interprets OEE as, for example, let's say you have an agent interacting with a database and it's retrieving OEE over the last 24 hours, but the unit of measure for the OEE, so OEE by week, OEE by month, OEE by day, by hour, current state, is in a separate cell. So it does two queries. One returns OEE by day, one returns OEE by hour, and it doesn't have the unit of measure. Okay, it lacks the context it needs. It has two results for OEE. It doesn't know which one to pick. So it makes up a third, unless what? Unless you tell it not to. In your prompt, you say, if you are unsure of the response, ask clarifying questions. Okay? Why is it they don't do that by default? Why is it they don't just have the model ask you clarifying questions by default?
It'll never stop asking.
It'll never stop asking you questions.
It asks you a question if the accuracy is 96% or less, if you give it that prompt. Right, any other questions? Yes?
So
within this MCP or the dashboard that you just showed us,
Yeah.
you need to create a lot of these tools behind the scene, right? Because it doesn't do it by itself. So all these tools you need to create. How long did it take to create those tools? I know it can run very quickly in 2 seconds or 2 minutes or whatever, but I think there's a lot of effort goes into creating these tools. Is this something that you build it, or are these the third-party tools that you build?
So here, if you go here, so he's asking the tools that were used to build this in the background, how much? All right, here is the actual instruction set. So for the executive dashboard, there is there's probably 200 lines of instructions. Okay. It's just common language. Yeah, it's actually in Markdown. What's that? No. Well, the reason why is because Claude reads YAML versus Markdown. It will interpret both exactly as reliably, and it is easier for a human being to. This is my role. My role is managing that, and then there is I just want to show you. This is the dashboard definition. This is the instruction. So this reference in the context window, this tells the agent exactly how to build my executive dashboard. So it will always build the dashboard exactly the same way every day. This is a very important point, okay? Agents focus on objective. They don't focus on tasks. You don't ask an agent, do X, you give it an objective, okay? Many of us start, how did everybody start using ChatGPT in the beginning? I know I'm over time. What? Exactly like you use Google. You literally did whatever you put into Google, you put that in ChatGPT. How many of you do that today? Never. That's digital fluency, by the way. Also, your role in using agents on the plant floor is to increase the collective digital fluency of your whole organization. The tools that you give your organizations to begin with, they will use like monkeys, okay? And then 5 years from now, they'll use them like savants. All of us had to learn, okay? All right, any other questions? Did that help? Okay. All right, perfect, awesome. Thank you guys for your time. I gotta go catch a plane. Thank you.